I really appreciate you guys being here. And you brought a friend. God, y'all are so brave. Well, I mean, you got Blake here. And so you figured, okay, we're all right there. So, so brave. And I just want to welcome you all. Some of you, it's welcoming you back, and you guys online. You know, more than anything, I feel like this time is so important because as a species, we need each other. And we need each other. We need each other in such a way is we need somebody to hold a higher vision for us. And I'm sharing this stuff with you because I've just been at an event for a few days, and I've missed my little pod here, my bubble. You guys are just so kind. And I don't know, you know, you're seeking for something more than a peak moment or a mountaintop experience. You're seeking more than a mountaintop experience that's about sensation. Because the idea of top of the mountain, I'm not totally sure what made you guys come up with it. They come up, Gracie and Dee usually come up with the titles, and then I figure out what I'm supposed to say. So I am curious. Let's do tell. Oh gosh. I do have notes, y'all. I know what I'm going to say, but I'm curious. Oh, that's good. Kyla said for you guys online that instead of it being over the hill, it was top of the mountain. That's such a nice thing. Yeah, that's such a nice thing. The only thing about over the hill is, man, you slide in and then you can look for another peak after that, you know? You know, because that's really what, you know, I think that's how I live my life, you know, climbing every mountain and looking for the next peak. I had somebody ask me one time, "Are you ever satisfied?" I said, "Oh, no, I live extremely satisfied, but life is a game that's meant to be played." And, you know, there's, I hadn't even introduced myself. I'm just going to get right into it. Okay. I'm Padma, and now I'm going to get right into it. Uh, you know, there are some people that live life trying to feel like they're having this sort of, I call them peak moments. You know, just living peak moments are awesome. Do you need something? That's so weird when I see myself up there. Do y'all need some help? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. That's good. That might distract you from having a peak moment tonight. Oh my God. I know. And I want to thank you all so much. We had so many Rasikas here that just made the space so beautiful. And I was walking around when I got in today after my event. I've been at an event since, was it Thursday night? Thursday night. Yeah, Thursday night, called the Junior Theater Festival. And I think, is Nikki Pierce on here? Her daughter was there. I had some peak moments there. One of the biggest parts of the event, God, I'm just all over the place tonight. One of the biggest parts of the event was, I mean, we're talking musical theater, okay? If you've never hung out with musical theater people, oh, you are missing it, man. It is so fun. Do you know what I'm talking about? I'm Padma. What is your name? Mike. Micah? Mike. Michael. Okay. Do you know what I'm talking? You know theater people? Oh my God, it is so cool, isn't it? It's so cool to have musical theater kids and to grow up with them. Well, this festival, are you familiar with the Junior Theater Festival? Do they do anything like that? Well, it's the first time it's been in Texas, and it's a pretty serious deal. I mean, they basically what they do is they take a major production like our company did Shrek this year, and Skylar's my granddaughter. She was Fiona. One of the funnest. You know what? We should have a peak moment and play Freak Flag in a little bit. That would be good. Let your freak flag wave. Okay, yeah, we're gonna have to do that. Okay, so um, so this thing called Junior Theater Festival, what the director's charged with is they are charged with taking a major production. Mhm. I'm not even saying anything and it's doing something. So they're charged with taking a major production and they have to take it down to 15 minutes. And then they still have to tell the story. Like you still have to know what's going on. So you have to have those major touch points. And it's like they don't wear costumes or anything like that. I mean, they match their t-shirts and stuff like that, and they are like boom out there for 15 minutes, and it's dancing and singing and acting in 15 minutes. Our group won excellence in dance. And I mean, it's like so fast and difficult. It's a real difficult thing to do. But that isn't even the most exciting part. That's just so cool. The one really, I had a couple of peak moments, but one of the biggest my top of the mountain is, I call it peak moments. One of the biggest peak moments I had is the whole auditorium. It's the Smart Financial Center in Sugar Land. So I think Paul's even played there with a Fab Five or something. The whole thing was full of these theater kids, and they put a playlist on with some of the most awesome songs. You know, they're playing like, um, The Circle of Life from Lion King. I mean, these songs, The Greatest Showman. I mean, if you've heard any of these songs, your heart, they're just so feel good. Well, the songs are playing, and the whole auditorium is like, all these kids, and we're talking like, I think they have to be 8, maybe up to 18, are standing up, and they all know all the words. This massive, they know all the words. They've got their phones with the light on. Some of them, they've done a musical to it, so they actually have steps and stuff. And you're looking out, and it's like, I don't know that I've been to a concert quite this dynamic ever. And each time we would gather in there, this would happen. And your heart just felt so full. And then, of course, our final deal was a concert last night with the guy that is the genie on the Broadway version of Aladdin. And it was just so cool. If you're a musical theater person, you can really appreciate this. We just got all kinds of stuff happening now. Bells ringing. And oh my gosh, to see that, to see him, he's not in costume or anything, but just to see him up there singing some of these songs. And of course, he sang a lot of other really moving and big heartfelt songs. I mean, the whole idea of musical theater is to move you, is to cause you to have a peak moment through and through. Well, why would a yoga master be here talking about top of the mountain, peak moments, blah, 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 and where does yoga come in? Well, our school is called Rasa Yoga. Rasa is actually, it's a term that is cultivated emotion. It also refers to the building blocks of the human body, the plasma, and it also refers to flavor or taste. And, so like, what is the flavor of what you watch on television or a movie or something, and the flavor of food? It's like the flavor of life or the taste of life. And so it's like a triad. Well, the word yoga is to become one with, to unify with. And really, Rasa Yoga is an ancient term that basically could mean emotional intelligence, our more modern kind of term for that. Well, the term rasa was used in ancient times in India as a theater term. Matter of fact, even in modern, like if you go to college and you study theater, you learn about something called rasa boxes. It's actually an exercise. They actually did them when they were there. They don't call them Rasa boxes, but that's what they're doing because I know what they are. Where, you know, something, it's like improv, like something's tossed out and you have to be able to embody or cultivate the emotion behind whatever it is that's happening. Well, in really ancient times, that, you know, in theater productions, which the term for basically theater production, how we would think of it now, is Leela. But Leela is also referred to, like when we look at life as this grand divine, or looking at life as a grand divine cosmic play. And the idea in the grand divine cosmic play, or the experience of life as a Leela, is that those that know how to embody and cultivate an intentional experience of rasa, because the term rasa's got a lot of meanings to it, is also nectar, or the juice of. To be able to cultivate the nectar or the juice of any experience through and through, and living life in that way, is a Rasika. If you happen to see my car out there, you see I have Rasika on there, because my only intention is to live life as a Leela, a grand divine cosmic play, and to embody, to live fully and passionately, because Rasika is also sometimes is, there's not a like good English translation for it, but we try our best. You know, there's nothing just like the Sanskrit word. It says it all when you can feel the vibration and the tone of each of the letters in the word. But it's really living passionately. It's stepping out of this idea that life is good or bad or right or wrong, but just stepping into every last bit of it, just so fully and completely throwing yourself into the character that you choose to be in your life. And your body happens to be the instrument. And somebody that knows how to live life in those peak moments, and life is the grand divine Leela, sees the body as the instrument rather impersonally. In other words, you don't identify as this body. The body is an instrument to which you step out and you play. And you play it big, and you play it impersonally. And it's a beautiful thing. And yoga, particularly Ayurveda yoga, Rasa Yoga, is the quintessential path to playing that grand divine cosmic play. And the idea, you know, of the mountain. I love the mountain as an analogy because it's just so perfect. You know, it's like when you look at your life and it's like, life is like a mountain, like lots of mountain. Like you want a mountain range like the Rockies or the Alps. You look out and it's like, I'm going to climb every one of them. And I am, you know, when I shared with you the person, are you ever satisfied? Oh, hell yeah, I'm satisfied. I'm so satisfied. I'm going to climb every mountain and I'm going to get to every peak. And, you know, when we step into doing that and we start to look at life that way, something happens. Because I don't know, I could potentially emotionally inspire you guys enough tonight that you might walk out and go, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to, you know, I'm going to start a yoga program. I'm going to become a yogi. I'm going to go and get my abs of steel, or I'm going to go and I'm going to start studying Greek philosophy. I'm going to master, you know, Greek philosophy, or I don't know. I mean, how many things have you had on a list, or you have on a list? I got lots of them. I mean, right now I'm taking jazz and horse lessons. And hey, by the way, I had a great horse lesson today. I know, sorry, y'all, do you have to endure my stories? I did. I'm learning. How many horsemen do we have in here? Horsemen, horsewomen? Raise your hand. I started learning to post today. And that makes me realize I can ride a horse. I was like, oh my God, this can happen. But I'm sharing this with you guys because I've always wanted to, I've always wanted to learn. Like, I don't just like to learn something. I want to master it. Like, this is already a done deal, right? I mean, I don't just learn something. I want to master it. And one might say, well, why horses? Well, I mean, you don't get much more Rasa Yoga than that. I'm pretty much covered in dirt right now still, because I hug the horse so much and I love it. So my particular horse that I ride all the time, I love him so much, and he's so good to me and so helpful. Makes me feel like I'm really good, And so, it's scary, because I was like, okay, this is it. I'm good. I finally have time to really put my energy into this. My granddaughter graduated high school, and this thing I did this past weekend was kind of the big other thing in theater of the handoff, because she's gonna, won't be doing this. She's gonna be going to college and studying theater in college. So this was the big kind of thing. And so I'm probably on about my 10th or 12th lesson already. Like, I don't just do it a little bit, And so, so the minute though I said, okay, it's time, I've had this on my list for a long time. And this is the tricky thing about, top of the mountain or peak experiences, is that we all have probably a lot of things that we have said in our life that we would like to master. And should we master it, man, that would be awesome. That'd be a peak experience. But the moment, like, the rubber meets the road to really do it, something happens. I have not had a lesson yet in my past 10, 12 lessons that I haven't felt scared as hell on my way over there. Today, I even thought about calling and canceling. Every day. Every day I've had that. I've had that feeling. I used to have that about yoga. And I used to have it about speaking. I used to have it about teaching. I still get nervous. That's why one of the best things, I get nervous now a lot. Like, if I'm like, many of you were, when I taught for the International Association of Yoga Therapy, or the Yoga Expo, or even whenever I do the Texas Yoga Conference, those things that are outside of our school, I still get nervous beforehand, and I'm usually nervous when I start. And the best way that I overcome it is I go, I'm nervous right now. I tell everybody, I'm just gonna bite this thing off, and y'all just need to know, the minute I do that, boom, it's gone. It's gone. Because I just stare it in the face, because it's like anything else, just like this horse thing. Today, I was like, well, I've been gone. We got open house today. What was I thinking? I came up with all kinds of very important reasons why I should cancel it. And it's not a problem. They wouldn't have a problem with it. It'd be fine. I had so many thoughts in my mind. But peak of the mountain experiences, they don't come easy, or they wouldn't be peak experiences, right? And every part of me wanted you that it felt so easy. But when you give in like that, and I haven't done that with my yoga either. I started at 28 years old, just turned 60, and I have not stopped since. And I've had tons of scary experiences. And I know how it works. So I just said, just go get your jeans on, wear a tank top. I know it's hot, wear a tank top. And so I just one step at a time. Go get your jeans on, go get your tank top on, just do it. Get in the car, one step at a time. And I just did it. And really, the moment you say you want to do something, that when you master it, because I've had tons of peak experiences in the world of yoga, or just like this past life, I've had tons of them. I know what they're like, and I love them. And they're sustainable peak experiences. They're not emotional highs and, or, oh God, I got a great buzz, or, oh, wasn't that cake fantastic? I'm not talking about sensory peak experiences, things that are not really sustainable. I'm talking about something that was things that are difficult, that you worked for, that you stayed the course in the face of every part of what happens the moment you say you're going to choose the peak. The peak here being your higher nature, mastery of something you don't already have mastered. It's way easier in the short term to choose lower nature. Way easier. But like today, as I was getting in my car going, I could just call right now and go right to the school. I mean, it's open house. I was up late last night. I just drove in this morning, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff kept popping up like little demons of resistance, all right, in my head, want to pop up. It's like stage fright. All right, in the great Leela. Everybody has it. I read somewhere that Henry Fonda, some of you younger people may not know who Henry Fonda is, but even until the day he died, he would throw up every time before he would perform. He just accepted it, threw up, cleaned himself up, and either got on stage or got in front of the camera. Never stopped, and was one of the greatest, most influential actors that ever lived. So I'm getting in my car and I had this thought. So have you ever had like somebody come to your door selling door to door? I used to do this. I mean, when I was a kid, everything I bought because I was selling makeup or something when I was a kid. But you have an advantage when you're a kid though, because you're cute and they don't say no. And you tell them, I'm just selling makeup because I want to buy my own trumpet for band. Oh, honey, I'll buy everything you've got. Yeah, that works that way. But, you get a little bit older and it doesn't seem to work that way. But I learned early on when I'd knock on that door, if they'd answer the door and they go, hi, what do you need? What's going on? Well, I knew that once they asked me about what I was doing, that boom, I was in. Well, see, your obstacles work the same way. Your obstacles are like a telemarketer or I don't know, what are some of the other calls we get now? Just like a telemarketer. That's the biggest thing, I guess, insurance and all that stuff. And the moment you say, oh no, I haven't heard of that before or whatever, and then like, boom, you're sunk. I mean, you're like, you just have to go, okay, I'm hanging up now. I'm hanging up. I'm not hanging up. Hanging up. Or like pull a Jerry Seinfeld and get a bottle and crinkle it real loud. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Well, that's what our obstacles are like. I mean, the minute you say so, I want you to know, and I know Denise and Gracie came up with this title because they do see that I'm a top of the mountain person and I will live the rest of my life that way. I can't even imagine not being that way because, our hearts are all beating, but many people are like the walking dead. They're walking, they're not even alive because it's just, let's get through the next day. If I could just get through the next day. Or for the most part, and humans come by this innocently, especially if you live in the United States of America, because I mean, all you need to do is turn on the television or now watch your YouTube videos. And I mean, if you drink Coors Light, you're going to have a peak experience. You're going to feel like you're in the Rockies. If you, one thing that gets me all the time is like when you look at like wine. I mean, I love wine, right? But you look at wine or beer or like, vodka commercials or billboards or things like that. And it's like, the thing is that they advertise this, but they never advertise what it's like when you've had too much. I mean, if they take a video of me, if I've had too much, nobody would drink wine anymore. They'd be like, no way, you know, because they want it to look like what? A peak experience. Advertisers only stay alive because human beings seek out peak experiences through sensory experience. Through, you know, if I hear something that's nice, it's like, and there's not a thing wrong with sensory experience, because Rasa even refers to sensory experience and karma, the pleasurable, beautiful things. But there's a big difference when we confuse these sensory experiences with true, sustainable peak moments. So let's just make a distinction with that. Sensory peak moments are emotional highs and lows that are non-sustainable, right? They're not sustainable unless you have something to ingest, something to listen to, something to fill in the blank. Authentic peak moments that I am talking about are something that come from within you. It's something that really, I don't want to make it sound too mystical, but it really is. It lies beyond the ego. In yoga psychology, our ego is very important, but it's understanding that we are not our ego. We are not our personality. And so what advertisers and what most people try to do is they try to live through sensory experience through their ego. I mean, let's take going on a vacation, for example. Going on a vacation, yeah, that's real nice, but how many people get depressed when vacation's over? See, that's not sustainable. A true Rasika doesn't have to go to the mountains to feel the mountains. And this is something I learned through experience, because I used to move a lot, travel a lot, always seeking out here. But a true Rasika wakes up in the morning and man, the Rockies are in her vision. I am the Rockies. I am the Alps. I am the Rogue River in Oregon. I am those experiences. I don't have to reach out here. So somebody asked me about my horse lessons. So how does that have to do with yoga? I said, it's not about the horse lessons, really. I said, it's about the fear and the resistance that I have to these magnificent creatures. I'm scared of them. I'm very scared of these living beings. I have so much fear when I'm up there. I have so much fear the moment I start putting the saddle on. That's really what it's about. It's the thing that my heart is drawn to. It's the most, it just lines up. It just works really well with everything else I do. And so it's not so much about what we do out here, but it's learning to become one that lives life beyond sensory satiation. Another way you hear this in modern psychology is the pleasure pain principle. Living with attachment to pleasure and seeking pleasure, or resistance or aversion, trying to avoid things. Most people, particularly in our country, none of you in this room, or you wouldn't be here, you know, are deluded and really living life avoiding what they're afraid of. Heck, right now, I know, at least in our country, we've got human beings avoiding each other and canceling each other just because somebody doesn't act the way you want them to. Not you guys, the royal you. We've got people quitting people, talking bad about people. I know, I was just with a whole bunch of parents and outside of my little bubble here and experience things firsthand. Innocents they're innocent, but that's the way people communicate, is talking about what they don't like and glorifying what they do like and living through sensory experience. And based on my opinion is everything. And if I can manage to get people turned on to my opinion, then I have a momentary feeling, sort of a moment of like, okay, there's a big experience. They like me and they agreed with me. But then what happens, half an hour later? Right. And so this whole idea of, living life as the grand divine Leela, and for our purpose here, being a mountain climber. And I think it's just one of the best analogies that we can use for life. How many of you have mountain climbed? Have you climbed mountains or done some pretty intense hiking anyway? Okay. Is this a story? Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's funny. Well, I went on a whole hiking, mountain climbing, 2-week intensive one time in British Columbia, just so I could really live this analogy. Like I said, it's like I wanted to feel this analogy and know, and when I'm talking intensive, I'm talking up at 5 a.m, eating, just eating super clean. And man, we're out and we're gone and we're not back till 8 or 9 hours later. I mean, hard, man. That was hard. In every day, part of it was you get a massage at the end of the day because everybody's hurting. You go and you're like, okay. Because for everybody to get up the next day and to be able to do it again. And that's really where so much of my mountain experience, really this is really what it's like, and having a guide and all. And so, you climb a mountain. If you haven't climbed a mountain, you don't have to really get the physics, the logic behind this, right? So the base of the mountain, depending on what mountain it is, it could be something like, if you're in Peru, we did some pretty big mountain climbing there. So you can be in Peru or Colorado, Pikes Peak. Lene went to Mount Rainier recently. So I've seen some awesome pictures. I think Robin right now is in Colorado, and she took a picture. Well, anyway, so you first start and you're like, oh, yeah, this is going to be so cool. I'm at the bottom of this mountain and we're just going to hike up this mountain. I'm not even talking major mountain climbing, we're going to make it to the peak. It's just down at the bottom. Oh, okay, great. This is going to be so great, and you got your equipment and all of that. And even potentially maybe laying your in a little bit, and depending on how steep it is. And so you get going. And at first it's like, oh, yeah, no problem. Got this. This is good. We're good to go. And usually, you may be starting out with a group of people and everybody's good and everybody's walking. My experience is there'd be A group, B group, and C group. I called them the A-listers. The A-listers are like, look at me. Were you one of those? Out in the front, look at me. I'm so awesome. Yeah, look at me, And part of me wanted to go with the A-listers. I'm like, oh no, I'm not doing this. I'm gonna be a B or a C, or I just want to get through this. Really was where I was, because a big part of being a peak, a true peak living person, it's not personal. It's setting out to master something and living not from the point A to the point B, but living in the space between and confronting all of your resistance and your desire to quit, your desire for pleasure, your desire, can we just stop and eat lunch? I'm starving, when really I'm not going to die. I had to tell myself, I'm not going to die. I'm not starving. I've got plenty on me to stay, to be able to live, So yeah, you start, it's broad, lots of people. But my experience is that you get going, you rest, you do have lunch, and few people start dropping out. They're like, we're just going to hang. We're going to hang here, and then there'd be another guy for that group. I was not one of those. I never would quit. I'm not. And that's the key with peak moments. You can't quit. Don't have to be an A-lister, but you can't quit. And so, I get going, we get going again, and then you lose a few more people. And the higher you get, it gets harder to breathe. And when people drop out, something happens. You start going, well, they're quitting. So maybe there's something to quitting, right? It's your ego self that starts going, well, maybe there's something to that. Maybe they know what they're doing. Maybe I should just hang back with them. I don't let myself entertain that stuff. I'm just saying where it goes, because that's the telemarketer going ring, 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 ring. And you can see it on there and you're so tempted because it does say New York after all. I mean, what if it's like, Publishers Clearinghouse and I just won $5 million or something and I'm missing the whole thing, right? Oh my God, and it's ring, 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 ring. And, you keep going, but it gets harder. And then if you start looking down, when it gets steeper and things are looking small and you can no longer see the people that dropped out. And I've taken people up a mountain before where quite a few dropped out. They were even mad at me. I was the guide in that particular one, and they were even mad at me, because that's what happens when we want to quit. We start trying to blame. Why? That's stupid. They're asking me to do that. That's too much. That's not enough. No one should be doing this. Blah, blah, blah. We should have done this. There's all these things that start coming up. Either we start seeking pleasure and we start trying to find some sensory satiation. Imagine what would happen to you in your life if you gave up attachment to sensory satiation. Imagine what would happen in our world if we said, no, I refuse to give in to that addiction, because all addiction is the avoidance. It's the attachment to the pleasure, momentary pleasure, and the avoidance of the pain of doing what's hard. That's all it is. Even nowadays, of course, we have a phone, and phone makes us feel like God, and that doesn't feel like an addiction. We pick up our phone. How many of you, especially you GPs in here, because in our highest level program, you have to publish, you write a book, and you sit down to write, and it's so hard to sit down and write. And how many of you, we've got doctorates in here and masters, how many of you, and when it went to write a thesis or, to write, how difficult it is and what starts coming up? It's like little demons. Suddenly your phone looks interesting, or, I got some Rocky Road ice cream. I think I need some ice cream right now. And then I'll get my ice cream and then I'll start working on the paper. It's like, all those little things. Just imagine what would happen in our world if instead of giving into sensory satiation, we instead pursued the peak moments. I mean, they'd be out of business. Doctors would be out of business. I mean, have you ever known anyone? I've had the good fortune to know people that got some sort of diagnosis, maybe a potentially terminal diagnosis where the prognosis was dark, but they suddenly went, you know what? To hell with it. And they quit their job and they start pursuing something, and they dive into something, and then it goes into remission. Believe it or not, there are hundreds of stories like that documented at the University of Virginia, just like that, where suddenly they got happy, started living fully, and mysteriously, their bodies started regenerating differently. Because our bodies are these regenerative systems. And remember, the building blocks of the body, plasma, is also rasa, which is cultivated emotion. Cultivated emotion is the ability to understand the power of emotion. That emotion is not something terrible. It's energy in motion. It's a byproduct of thought. And the rasa of it is we learn how to move emotion, and it becomes like fuel. So instead of Rocky Road ice cream or all the addictions, sexual addiction's a big one, porn addiction, any of the addictions out there, what they are taking the place of, they're simply taking the place of our ability to step into whatever, whatever resistance we have to whatever emotion, like fear or whatever it is that we're experiencing, and allowing ourselves to process it. Because when we process it, when you learn in Ayurveda yoga, you learn how to ignite something called Agni, or fire. And there's something called Bhuta Agni. Bhuta Agni is it's like mastery of the ghosts. Mastery of the ghosts of the mind, mastery of the ghosts that we experience in our body. And the idea of fire is that it's transformative. And when we learn how to take the byproduct of thought, emotion, and we learn how to cultivate rasa, and we learn how to move it through us, the body literally begins to regenerate differently. And so that's just a little bit of what happens to people physically. They feel better, because a lot of people think, oh, they'll say to me, oh my gosh, you just had your 60th birthday. I can't even believe that. That's hard to believe. I heard that all weekend this weekend. Because I'm around 40 something mothers. I'm one of the only grandmothers there. And I'm like, you're 40, wow. And I mean, I went to the classes, I participated with the kids, I learned a whole Oliver dance. It's hard, not life. And just participated. There were some other parents that participated too, but not very many. And it's just getting up and rocking. And if those kids stood up, if I got permission from the kids to stand up, you can bet I was standing up like, but I'd wait for the kids to stand up because I wanted to be cool, it's the kids scene, let them stand up. And so a lot of people think that living top of the mountain means I get in warrior two and I hold it long enough, or I run. I mean, I go to the gym, I run, I work out, I do tons of, asana practice, breathing practice, pranayama, pratyahara, blah, 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 meditate a lot, all of that stuff. But the truth is that you don't change matter with matter. You don't change form through form. So like, if you've got let's talk structural, like if you have a structural issue in your body, you don't change a structural issue through just holding warrior two for a long time. Whatever has already manifested as far as my body's concerned, that's a done deal. But the thing is our bodies are so divinely, cosmically functional, and that there's something called regeneration. Our cells are constantly regenerating. And we regenerate, the quality of the regenerative process is directly proportionate to the quality of our thought world and how we process and move emotion. So if I live life resistant, kind of holding on, contracted, giving in to my fear, not living the hard and doing the hard, then life is just hard. And I live in more of a descension. In other words, instead of climbing the mountain, I'm going way down, even below the mountain. So we can live life in a descension or an ascension. And it's inevitable. In an ascension, you are going to meet deep resistance, because ascension is moving with your higher nature and descension is giving in to your lower nature. And it's a choice. And the moment we make the choice to live and to express our higher nature, then everything of our lower nature comes running in going, and there are innumerable obstacles, from fear to people to maybe your own judgments to your need to be validated. One of the most important things that I have learned is that you have to learn how to self-validate. You cannot be looking for other people's approval and validation. that is one of the key sensory experiences that keeps people from climbing the mountain and even making it to the first peak. Most of you in this room and online have had some peak experiences, but how many of you have had some lately? I mean, real, visceral, sustainable peak experiences. The cool thing about it too is when you start living that way, they seem to just start coming to you like coincidences, like everywhere you look, these little mini peak experiences all the time. It's like a fractal pattern, because when you live in an ascension, in a regenerative way where you support the regenerative process of your cells in your body, that's when you start seeing transformation of your body. And that doesn't just happen overnight, because it's like your skin, like our skin, for example, right? Our skin is constantly shedding. Our skin's one of the fastest one, and epithelial tissue. It's one of the fastest things that, it's like, of course, we go get facials and we exfoliate, and we know the more we exfoliate, what happens is that your skin starts to regenerate more. Some people be like, well, why would I want to exfoliate my skin? Because that's why dry brushing is a key thing in Ayurveda, because the more you exfoliate, it stimulates the regenerative process of your cells. Whereas if I'm living in a descension, then I don't exfoliate. Part of the exfoliation process is climbing the mountain, is going to the horse lesson, is if you say, I'm going to go on this spiritual path, man, and I'm going to practice yoga and I'm going to learn yoga psychology and I'm going to do all this stuff. I mean, everything that's not that is going to hit you in the face. And it really is. It's an exfoliation of the old. And when we have resistance of allowing what is not serving us to be exfoliated, we start suffering. And that's when we start turning to our patterns of sensory satiation. Maybe you go form an alliance. Has anybody ever done that before? Being like, you know what? I mean, like, I could do this like with my horse lessons, for example. That this will never happen with me, but I'm just going to give you an example. Okay, I get in my car and I pull up. I'm like, you know what? I don't even know if this is the best place to even take lessons. I'm going to call so-and-so, because you know what? I know they brought their kid here for horse camp. I'm going to just call and even find out, because I don't know. I don't. Then I call somebody and they go, you know what? You're right. Actually, I'm still going to take my daughter there, but actually I have heard from somebody that said, in other words, your lower nature is one of the best detectives in the world for the evidence it wants to produce. It's amazing. It's like a squirrel. I got a bird feeder, and never dawned on me how squirrels are magnificent at getting the bird food. I looked out and I'm like, I'll be doggone, this is squirrels eating all that. Because I was like, oh, our birds, I don't see any birds, but the bird seed is gone. And it's because the birds can't get to it. Because we also have a lot of hawks and stuff like that we see. And I was thinking, oh, wow, this would be great. We'll have more birds coming into the yard and stuff. But that's what our lower nature, not that squirrels are lower nature. I love squirrels. I don't know, except there was a really strange one. We were walking on the sidewalk this weekend. Like I really didn't think I thought it was going to chase me. So no offense to squirrels, but our lower nature immediately starts gathering evidence for why not. And then our lower nature starts trying to find a way to make us feel better about the why not. And that's when our drug of choice comes in. Our drug of choice being whether it's food or our phone or sex. Sex is one of the best ones ever. when it's just used for that, because you kind of get approval. I mean, if it's sex with somebody else, you get this approval. Oh, I've got this approval. You've got somebody that's like, for the moment, they're right there with you. Yeah, let's do this instead. We're good to go. And, and I'm just saying that, we start looking for these sensory things instead of choosing our higher nature and climbing the mountain, because we never get to see the full view. And the greatest thing in the world is when you can get to the top and you can see almost a full view. Because the funny thing about it, when you're climbing up a mountain, you can't see very much, right? You see what's right in front of you. You see the people that are there with you, the people leaving you, the people moving this direction, and you can only see like that part of the mountain depending on how high you are. But when you get to the top, suddenly you understand, it's like, there was so much that I didn't know and I couldn't see and look, and all those things that I thought were so petty. And oh my gosh, I had a friend that was upset at me because I didn't go to our lunch date because I went to my horse lesson instead, but I made it to the top, and that seems so tiny now because I see the bigger picture. That's what I have learned in the grand scheme of things, is that, man, when you get to the top of the mountain, of each of the mountains you choose to climb, it's like suddenly everything makes sense. Because all along the way, and just like here with our community, this is a mountain I'm still climbing. It's probably the biggest mountain. It's like the Kilimanjaro of mountains, that I'm still climbing because my vision is just so huge for this community. And, I've been, let's see, I'm 60. I started when I was 28. And I guess I've had a studio since I was like, I don't know, 34, 36, 37. I don't even know. And there's been so much that's happened. I've been criticized. I've gotten negative reviews. I mean, just outright lies. I mean, like, what are they saying, Because they're right there at the middle of the mountain. They can't see the whole picture. They don't know the whole thing. Or maybe they came here, wanting Tex-Mex, but we're serving Chinese, and they're mad because I don't have Tex-Mex whenever it's clearly Chinese or whatever, and we've been referred to as the Harvard of yoga schools, where there's yoga businesses and then there are schools. A school is where you go to learn and you grow and you move to the next level. I mean, if you're in a school that's not challenging you to move to the next level, and then it's not a school. This is what it is and what it's meant to be. And I've had so much, and also dealing with my own body. I've hurt myself. I've injured myself. You can't have peak experiences if you don't climb the mountain because you're afraid of hurting yourself or you're afraid of a little pain. I've hurt myself a lot. I've fell flat on my nose several times. I've sat for hours in meditation, not moving, and I'm not talking about my body hurting. The mind hurts you a lot more than the body, or my mind's just, so many things that I have had my moments, and the pandemic was the big one. Where I really thought my vision has been shattered. I really went through such a period where I said, I don't see any peak. And I got very down, and I felt like all was lost. And believe me, reminder, I'm a Rasika. I let myself be thrown on the ground and just really feel it all fully. And I was very transparent. Most everybody knew exactly how I felt and what was going on. And I really had to be very authentic about it. I didn't know if I could go on. And those offers I've had in the past to go teach at the retreat center in Costa Rica were beginning to look pretty sweet, because I also get really awesome offers all the time. I mean, not during the pandemic, I didn't, which was kind of, and it does something for the ego, and sometimes I want to, oh man, to go live there for a couple months and teach, boy, that'd be really great. And then I wouldn't have to deal with community stuff. You know, it's like, it's family. You know what I mean? It's like when you're in your own home with your own family, suddenly you can be around other people with the same traits, same characteristics, but your sensory experience is, oh, this is new and fresh and this is okay, and you get taken for granted. Whereas you show up somewhere to teach and they don't know you, they're all like, oh my God, you're so amazing. That's why I love hearing my little comments whenever I teach on like Texas yoga retreat or yoga conference, where I'm not saying that, remember I was talking earlier about validation. Those things I always will say, I appreciate the validation, but I always have to remember, got to self-validate. Right. But when those offers come through just like that, it's like it's shiny. And those are always reasons to step away from my biggest peak. We're all going to have those. We're going to have the things that tempt us, that lure us. And I have to ask myself, why am I considering this? What's going to happen once this gig is done? I'm going to need to find another gig. And all my yoga friends are famous, they're celeb yoga teachers and all that. They had been trying for a long time to get out of the going and doing the gigs all over the place thing. It's tough to be a yogi and maintain yogic values and sort of teach bump, 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 bump all over the place. It really is. You have to, the whole nature of yoga is climbing the mountains and looking for the next peak. I mean, that's what it is. It really, really is. It's not like, just kind of jumping from one to the other, but it's like, no, stay in the course until I reach the top. Not going up halfway, looking for the next easiest one. It's like, no, stay in the course. There'll be plenty of little challenges along the way. But, all in all, the most important thing that we can do to have our physical body regenerate, to be healthy, to be strong, to have our mental, emotional, thought world, to be able to regenerate, to be able to light the fire of Bhuta Agni. And you start to see those little demons, the demons of attachment to pleasure, the resistance to pain or the aversion to pain. You have to really see those. And this is just this is an Ayurveda practice that I always recommend. And I do really simply. I see those things like wood. Wood represents earth. And it's like wood for the fire. And literally, when I see that come through, it's like wood for the fire. Wood for the fire. What do I need to do? Let me just do a sun salutation, breathe deeply, put the wood for the fire, and sit and just sit. And, to live as fully as we possibly can, to live in a highly regenerative way, in a powerful way. There's a term in Ayurveda, it's called Rasayana. It's Rasayana. Rasayana is the practice of living regeneratively, like you actively get behind the momentum. And that means that you've got to look at your attachment to pleasure and the giving into that pleasure. And I'm not talking about some sort of what's the word I'm looking for? I've lost it. I'm not talking about you've got to take a bunch of stuff away and out of your life. This is where the study of yoga and having a teacher comes in. Because the last thing you try to do is say, oh, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. Because what happens? Right. Yeah. Our brain is designed to do it. So, it's not going to work that way. We're going to have to develop our body. And when I say body, I'm talking about our nervous system. We're going to have to purify the nervous system. And what I mean by purifying the nervous system, it doesn't mean that, this puritanical idea, it doesn't mean that. It's like if you've ever had like a lake house. We had a beach cabin when I was a kid. And when we wouldn't go for a while and you go to run the water and the water comes through kind of rusty and tastes weird, my mom goes, don't drink the water. But if you run it for a while, clear water purifies the water. So the practice of Rasa Yoga isn't a matter of saying, don't do this, don't do that, you're bad, da 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 da. That is the last thing you want to do. That's why this isn't a, sort of get well overnight scheme. It's like you have to, if you're a mountain climber, you've got to accept your strengths and accept your weaknesses, accept your successes, accept your failures, avoid glorifying successes, avoid making a big thing or taking failures personal. Thank you for coming. Avoid making failures personal and learn how to purify the nervous system, how to get the water running clear through the nervous system. Okay. So that's one of the main and most important things you do. And the way you do that is through you get your physical practice and your breathing. You get that aligned with one another. You create a harmonious relationship between breath and body. And then the third most important thing is learning mastery of the senses. It's not about taking a bunch of stuff away, but it's about recognizing the call of the attachment of the senses and getting those swimming together in a harmonious way. And then what starts to happen is that you start noticing that you make different choices. And I think there's a lot of experienced people in here that know what I'm talking about. You don't realize it, but like, you know what? I don't know. One of the hardest times I went through was when what I called some of my things didn't work anymore. You start going, you know what? It's not working. That sensory satiation is not working anymore. So it's time to just climb the mountain. And so I'd like to encourage you all to choose the ascension, choose the peak experiences, and pick who you choose to be, and who you want to be, and then make everything that you do aligned with that biggest vision of when that time comes that you make your final biggest ascension and it's time for you to take your last breath, you can say, I am exactly who I wanted to be. Thank you all so much. Namaste. Namaste. Thank you guys online.